리플의 기술고문 CTO 데이비드 슈워츠. 그는 리플 소송이 주는 의미, 그리고 앞으로의 금융시장에 리플이 나아가며 보여줄 솔루션이 어떤 미래를 만들 수 있는지를 제시하고 있습니다. 그가 생각하는 시장의 미래는 과연 무엇일지 자세히 살펴보겠습니다.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the ruling in the SEC versus Ripple lawsuit. Judge Torres ruling XRP in itself not a security. How are you and the team feeling about that? I'm sure it's a big win. I know personally for Brad and Chris, there's also some big wins there.
Yeah, I mean that ruling particularly was huge for us. I mean, and I think pretty big for the industry. I think you can see a sort of trend. I mean, truthfully, like there was a lot of Ripple hate when the lawsuit first came out, and before that, historically. And so I think at first a lot of people were like, "Well, good, like the SEC is going after the bad guys." I mean, there really was a lot of that, Yeah. In the industry. And I don't think anybody has that view anymore. I think they've looked at the case, they've looked at what the SEC has, and they're like, wow, that's what this is about. Like they did this investigation and that's what they brought forth. There have been three big wins for Ripple. There was the ruling, like you mentioned, that XRP was not inherently a security, which is big, not just for Ripple, but the entire crypto industry. It's been cited in a number of other cases. Then the SEC was denied an interlocutory appeal. And I think what was interesting about that was the SEC having to essentially argue that this is complicated and it's not straightforward and reasonable people can disagree, which obviously is a big change from their position. And then the SEC voluntarily dismissing the charges against Chris Larsen and Brad Garlinghouse. Personally, I think they realized, that was a strategic error. I mean, from our point of view, the SEC lost on everything that was important. And hopefully that trend will continue in the remedies phase. There's still proceedings going on over the next couple of months. And we hope that, I guess momentum is sort of mythical, but I certainly hope that things continue to go in our direction. And I think that our lawsuit wins and some of the others are showing that the SEC's policy of regulation by enforcement just isn't working. As far as what that means for the space generally and more broadly, I think the SEC has had a lot of losses in court, and they sort of lost that presumption that they're regulating it. When it's like when a policeman testifies in court, there's like this assumption that they're just doing this to be good citizens and that they represent the interests of everybody. And of course, no private litigant gets that benefit in court. And I think the SEC has burned up a lot of that sort of presumption of good faith that they have. Yeah. I'm not super happy with the current composition of the Supreme Court. A lot of people aren't, but one good thing about the current Supreme Court is they are very skeptical of the sort of administrative state proceeding without clear congressional authority. So I'm more optimistic about the regulatory front in the United States than I have been recently. I guess the one thing that I do worry about is that if it does push Congress to act, there's then that variable of does Congress pass a really good law or a really bad law or something in between. So that's the only possible dark cloud is it's possible that Congress could make things worse. And that's why I think like engagement on the part of the industry with regulators is just so important, just to make sure that they understand that that there are scams, there are bad things go. Like we don't want the government to do absolutely nothing, but also like we don't want to choke out innovation and force it overseas. So, but I still tell people if they're like, should I start my crypto business in the United States? I'm just like, if there's any way you could not, I feel bad saying that, but the reality is if you can avoid regulatory contact with the United States, you probably should.
And the SEC in itself has shown it doesn't act in good faith. They're supposed to be the good guys, if you want to put it that way, and respect the law, but we've seen things come out and their actions just don't align with the law. And, going back to what you were saying, the industry aligning with Ripple, I was really happy to see that. A lot of amicus briefs, a lot of folks started rallying behind Ripple and the XRP community. And a lot of great case law came out of the rulings that the rest of the industry can use now. So we're headed in the right direction. What are you most excited for in this upcoming cycle? It seems like we're headed into a next bull market cycle. I know you're on the building side, so I'm not asking about price predictions, but what are you most excited about? What are you looking forward to this year?
Well, regulatory clarity or resolution to the lawsuit obviously would, would be there is some reasonable chance that Ripple's lawsuit with the SEC will be resolved in 2024. Still could be appeals, I suppose. I mean, whether that would be resolved, I don't know. Big on sort of scaling at the blockchain layer. I think right now people can't really innovate right at the blockchain layer, and technologies like side chains and some of the zero knowledge proof stuff will enable people to innovate more sort of right at that lowest layer and enable more scalability. Just getting more people into the ecosystem, I think, is the biggest thing. Like, we have to create user experiences that are compelling to people, and I'm hoping that we can do that. On the XRP Ledger side, I'm hoping the AMM amendment will eventually activate. Decentralized identity doesn't seem all that controversial. And seeing things like carbon markets and tokenized securities, I think one of the problems, particularly, so like in the United States and in most of Europe, like, we're overserved with financial products. Like, we have access to everything. Like, I can invest in anything I want right on my phone with an app. But there's a lot of people who don't have those opportunities, and they basically, their choice is to stuff cash in a mattress or not,
Right.
and giving them access to tokenized securities and giving them access to things like collateralized lending. Obviously, they would be on the, so that's the other interesting thing. So like, when you think about collateralized lending or centralized lending, we often tend to think about like rich people having a tax efficient way to like access their crypto profits. That's not super, that's not that's not the way I want to change the world. But if you think about it from the other side of the sort of low risk loan for a person who can get a return, who might not have access to other financial products or services, like, that's really big, because that's the way you build wealth, is by saving up a little bit over a period of time, but it has to compound. Otherwise, inflation is just going to destroy it. So giving people who haven't had an opportunity to build wealth an opportunity to build compounding wealth in a system that can't be regulated away, or taxed away by fees and everything that eat into those rich, small fees today, the fees compound too. So those kinds of things are exciting. And of course, institutional adoption. We'll see what the Bitcoin ETFs lead to.